Where the Tyne meets the sea and ancient stones endure the centuries, Tyne and Wear hides shadows of the past. Here restless spirits linger, and their stories refuse to fade. Alum House. On Ferry Street in South Shields stands Alum House, a public house with a reputation as colourful as it is unsettling. By daylight it appears like any other busy inn, filled with chatter-clinking glasses and the comfort of warm company. But when evening falls, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows grow deeper, and the building seems to take on a presence of its own. For Alum House is said to shelter not one spirit, but several. The most notorious of these is Giggly Meg, believed to have been an Irish woman of ill repute who once lived upstairs. She makes her presence known through a strange, childish laughter, high-pitched, silly, and out of place in the stillness of night. Doors slam without cause, and on one occasion, an apple pie left to thaw was mysteriously placed inside the oven, already lit and burning. Other figures walked the building too. A Victorian gentleman in fine clothing, complete with top hat, was seen descending the stairs. Yet when he reached the bottom, he passed directly through a doorway that no longer exists. In the ladies' toilets, a grey lady drifts silently, her expression lost to sorrow. Down in the cellar, the disturbances intensify. Staff speak of Charlie, a mischievous phantom, blamed for tampering with the lights. One night, as the manageress prepared wages, the lamps flickered violently. She called out for Charlie to stop, and to her astonishment, the interference ceased immediately. Stranger still is the so-called phantom barman. Bottles have been flung from shelves, glasses rattled violently, and brass rails had to be fixed to restrain the invisible hand that delighted in hurling drink across the room. Patrons have felt sudden drops in temperature, smelt strange odors, and watched as objects shifted on their own. And in the darkest corners, the shade of a Roman soldier has been seen, his figure materializing in the cellar, and sometimes by the entrance itself, a reminder that this land has been haunted since long before the pub was raised. Alum House remains a place of laughter and company. Yet beneath its beams, the echoes of centuries collide, and the inn seems forever accompanied by unseen guests. Jarrow Hall. Perched on Church Bank in South Shields, Jarrow Hall is a handsome Georgian building, now preserved as part of the town's heritage. Yet behind its elegant windows and quiet gardens lingers a story that draws the curious and unsettles the unwary. The hall is most often associated with Isabella Chator, remembered in whispers as the Grey Lady of Jarrow. She lived here in the early years of the 19th century, and her life was shadowed by melancholy. Though the details of her sorrow are uncertain, her spectral presence has been seen time and again within the house. Witnesses describe her most frequent appearances in the Oval Room, where she drifts silently as if still absorbed in private reflection. At other times, she is seen on the staircase, halfway up, pausing mid-step before fading into nothing. From below, servants once reported the sound of measured footsteps above them, though the rooms were empty. The tread is slow, deliberate, and carries with it a weight that chills the listener. The kitchen, too, has been a place of disturbance. Objects are moved from their places, small items shifted or vanished, only to be found again in unusual corners. Staff have spoken of entering the room to find chairs oddly rearranged, as if someone had just risen from a meal unseen. One evening, a caretaker heard the clink of metal spoons stirring, though no pot simmered on the stove. Not all encounters are visual. Many describe a sensation of sadness that seeps into the air when passing through certain corridors. It is a heaviness difficult to explain, a pressing sorrow that leaves the visitor subdued long after leaving. Some say Isabella Chater's grief has clung to the hall itself, refusing release. By day, Jarrow Hall is bright with history, a place of education and community. But when the rooms fall silent and the sun slips from the sky, the Grey Lady is said to stir again, retracing the same stairways she once walked in life. Perhaps she lingers out of longing, or perhaps she simply cannot bear to leave her home. St. Andrew's Churchyard, in the very heart of Newcastle, amid the bustle of Newgate Street, lies a place where silence clings. St. Andrew's Churchyard has stood for centuries, its stones marking generations of the city's dead. By daylight, it is a quiet corner, shaded by trees and surrounded by traffic and shops. But when dusk falls and the city grows dim, the churchyard whispers of another presence. For among the graves, a young girl has been seen. She wears a long, flowing dress that moves gently in the night air, though the ground beneath her is still. Witnesses describe her drifting slowly among the tombstones, her pale form luminous against the darkness. She does not look toward the living, nor seek their attention. Instead, she seems absorbed in a world of her own, repeating a solitary walk among the dead. One passerby told of pausing at the railings one evening, glancing into the yard as the lamps flickered on. There, quite clearly, he saw the figure of a girl, her gown trailing as she moved between two headstones. Believing it to be someone lingering after a funeral, he stepped closer, only for the figure to melt away into the gloom, leaving the churchyard as empty as before. Others have spoken of a strange atmosphere that descends without warning. A sudden chill, the air heavy with damp earth, and an inexplicable urge to leave quickly. Some have heard the faint patter of footsteps on gravel paths, or the rustle of fabric brushing against the grass, though no one is visible. No records tell of the girl's identity. She may have been a child buried here long ago, or perhaps a mourner lost in grief, repeating her sorrow without end. Whatever her story, she has left her imprint upon the ground, returning again and again to wander among the stones. St. Andrew's Churchyard remains a place of worship and remembrance. Yet when the shadows stretch across the graves, the sight of a lonely girl in white reminds us that the boundary between the living and the dead is thinner than we may care to believe. Gibbside Hall, deep in the wooded estate of Gibbside, near Rowlands, Gill, stand the forlorn remains of Gibbside Hall. Once a proud mansion belonging to the wealthy Bowes family, it is now a roofless shell, ivy-clad and open to the elements. Birds nest where chandeliers once hung, and the wind moves through empty windows that once framed grand gatherings. Yet even in ruin, the hall has not fallen silent. Visitors have reported a sound that chills them more than the cold air, the distinct, deliberate notes of a piano playing within the hall. The music is said to drift out across the grounds, each chord echoing softly, though there is no instrument to be found within the ruins. It is not a tuneless noise, but a melody, gentle and haunting, as if an unseen hand still caresses the keys in the darkness. One evening, a small group walking near the hall paused, certain they heard a piano recital drifting through the air. The sound seemed to come from deep within the building, where shadows pressed thick against the stone. Stepping closer, the notes faded abruptly, leaving only silence. When they entered the ruin, the only sound was the wind rustling through fallen leaves. Some believe the music belongs to a long-departed member of the Bowes family, perhaps a lady of the house who once played for guests in the drawing room. Others suggest it is a servant or companion bound eternally to their instrument. A few whisper that the melody is not of the living at all, but an echo of the past, replaying itself again and again, carried through time like a memory trapped in stone. Whatever its source, the phantom music has given Gibbside Hall a reputation as one of the most unnerving places in the northeast. The ruin may stand broken and abandoned, but its voice remains. By daylight, the estate is peaceful, a place of history and nature. But when twilight falls and the trees grow dark, the sound of a piano drifts once more, filling the empty rooms of Gibbside Hall with music from beyond the grave. The Black Bull. On Front Street in East Bolton stands the Black Bull, a traditional English pub that has poured pints for generations. Its wooden beams, lively chatter, and glowing lights make it a welcoming sight to locals and travelers alike. Yet beneath the warmth of the bar lies a tale far darker, for this inn is said to be plagued by a host of ghostly disturbances. The most unsettling account concerns a child. More than one witness has reported seeing a toddler seated on the steps leading down to the cellar. The vision is brief but vivid, a small figure resting quietly as if waiting. But when anyone approaches, the child vanishes, leaving the stairway empty and cold. Strange happenings ripple through the pub beyond this eerie vision. Staff speak of the jam alarm on a gaming machine sounding without reason, its shrill tone cutting through the night. Gas supplies for the beer pumps have been mysteriously switched off, halting service, with no earthly hand to blame. Bottles and glasses rattle suddenly on their shelves, and on occasion, ashtrays have been hurled across the bar as though flung by invisible hands. One barman recalled preparing for closing when every light in the building flickered out only to blaze again moments later. Another described hearing laughter echo from the cellar, though no one was there. For some, the disturbances are playful, almost mischievous. For others, they are deeply unsettling, as if the building itself is alive with unseen watchers. What makes the Black Bull remarkable is the variety of its hauntings. A child machines that spark to life and objects hurled with force suggest more than one spirit at work. Perhaps the inn has become a gathering place not just for the living, but for those who never left. By day, it is a place of cheer music and community. But when the crowds disperse and the fire dies low, the atmosphere changes. The cellar door creaks, the shelves tremble, and one is left to wonder whether the Black Bull serves drinks only to the living. Gibbside Chapel. Amid the rolling grounds of the Gibbside estate stands a chapel of great beauty. Its classical stonework, domed roof, and proud columns give the impression of timeless dignity. This was once the spiritual heart of the Bowes family estate, a place of worship, remembrance, and solemn prayer. Yet the stillness of Gibbside Chapel is often disturbed by something unexpected, the lingering perfume of an unseen presence. Visitors and staff alike have reported entering the chapel only to be met with a sudden overpowering scent of perfume. It is a fragrance out of place, cloying and sweet, filling the air in waves so thick it almost compels one to step back outside. What unsettles most is the fact that the scent arrives without warning and just as swiftly vanishes, leaving behind the cold silence of the empty chapel. One visitor described the experience in hushed tones. Stepping beneath the great dome, she was enveloped by the strong aroma of roses, though no flowers stood upon the altar. The smell grew so intense, she felt lightheaded, until in an instant it disappeared, leaving nothing but dust and stone. Some say the perfume belongs to a lady of the Bowes family, perhaps one who attended services here long ago and continues to mark her presence. Others suggest it could be a mourner, a woman once overwhelmed by grief at a family burial, whose sorrow lingers in the very air. The chapel, after all, was not only a place of worship, but also of parting, where generations were laid to rest. There are those who believe the scent is not perfume at all, but a spiritual signal, an attempt by a restless soul to make itself known in the only way it can. Whatever the cause, the fragrance has become part of the chapel's reputation, an invisible signature haunting the sacred space. By day, Gibbside Chapel is admired for its architecture, its symmetry and grandeur. But when that strange perfume drifts unexpectedly through its empty halls, visitors are reminded that beauty and sorrow often walk side by side, and that some presences cannot be seen, only sensed. Northeast Land Sea and Air Museum. On the edge of Sunderland lies the Northeast Land Sea and Air Museum, a sprawling collection of aircraft vehicles and wartime relics. By day, it is a place of history, where families and enthusiasts wander among the machines that once roared through the skies. But by night, when the hangars fall silent, the museum becomes a theater for shadows. The most often spoken of presence is that of George, a Canadian hurricane pilot. He was among 6 RAF men killed in a tragic accident, and it is said his spirit has never left. Visitors have reported glimpsing a man in uniform walking with quiet dignity among the aircraft before dissolving into the still air. Stranger still are the fragmented apparitions. Several have seen only the lower half of a figure, legs striding purposefully across the hangar floor torso, and head simply absent. The effect is deeply unsettling, like a ghost caught mid-formation. Others have heard the faint strains of music, a piano playing voices, singing a gramophone, springing suddenly to life with no hand to wind it. One evening, a volunteer swore he felt a sharp shove near the helicopter display, forcing him to stumble forward. Looking back, there was no one near him. Stones, too, have been thrown inside the hangar, small, sharp clatters echoing against the metal frames of the planes. And it is not only humans who linger. More than one visitor has described the sudden appearance of a spectral dog thought to be an Alsatian that belonged to one of the wartime men. The animal pads silently through the exhibits before vanishing into shadow. The stories are many wartime lovers reunited in spirit, a jealous husband who killed a woman lost to accident. Each tale clings to the artifacts as though the machines themselves have carried their ghosts home. By daylight, the museum honors courage and sacrifice. But when night presses against the hangars, the air is filled with footsteps, voices, and unseen watchers. Here, history does not merely sleep, it walks, it sings, and sometimes it reaches out. Tyne Theatre and Opera House. On Westgate Road in Newcastle stands the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, a 19th century gem whose stage has hosted generations of performers. Its gilded balconies and red velvet seats speak of splendor, of comedy, of tragedy. Yet behind the footlights, another drama lingers, one that is whispered in the wings long after the curtain has fallen. The theatre is most famously haunted by Unlucky Bob. His true name varies in the telling, Robert Courtenedge, or perhaps Robert Crowther, but his fate is always the same. During a performance, he stood too near the side of the stage when a stage cannon was fired to mimic the sound of an avalanche. The ball struck him on the head, killing him instantly. Since that day, he has been seen lingering in the shadows, a solitary figure, watching from the wings, where his life so abruptly ended. Staff and visitors have reported feeling a sudden chill near that spot, or the uncanny sensation of cold breath against the cheek. Some have even felt the press of an unseen hand, as though Bob still stands too close. His presence is also linked to a distinct smell of tobacco smoke drifting across the darkened stage. But Bob is not the theatre's only resident ghost. A grey lady is said to drift through the balconies, perhaps another lost soul, driven to despair, a story that repeats itself across theatres of Britain. More uniquely, the spirit of actress Bessie Featherstone is tied to this house. She collapsed on stage during a New Year's Day performance in 1907, felled by undiagnosed typhoid. Since then, her voice has been heard in the darkness, faint moans, and a woman's tones echoing when the theatre lies empty. Audiences still flock to the Tyne Theatre for performances of laughter and wonder. Yet in the silence, after the applause, when the seats are bare and the stage unlit, the air feels heavy with unseen company. For in this theatre, not all the audience have tickets, some are bound to the drama forever. Denton Hall. Along West Road stands Denton Hall, sometimes called East Denton Hall, a building steeped in age and shadow. Its walls have witnessed centuries of Newcastle's history, and with them have gathered stories of a presence not easily dismissed. For within these old rooms walks a phantom known as Old Barbary, or more chillingly, Silky. Silky is described as a woman with long grey hair, her figure stooped with age, yet undeniably vivid. More than one witness has claimed to see her sitting calmly in a chair as though waiting for someone. On one occasion, a woman preparing for bed entered her chamber to find Silky seated before her. The apparition gazed in silence, then melted away, leaving only the faint rustle of fabric behind. The phantom is not bound to the house alone. Reports place her outside the grounds, drifting across lanes and fields, always accompanied by those strange, rustling sounds as if invisible skirts are dragging across the floor. Knocking and banging noises echo in the hallways at night without cause. Doors groan, and unseen hands seem to press against the walls. Some believe Silky was once a servant who lived and died within the house, her duties binding her to the estate even beyond the grave. Others suggest she may have been a poor woman who sought shelter here, turned away, and left to wander eternally. Whatever her story, her presence is rarely described as threatening. Instead, she is mournful, her quiet movements suggesting a spirit resigned to solitude. Yet there is something undeniably unnerving about Denton Hall after dark. Visitors speak of a heaviness in the air, the sense of being observed from empty corners. A knock in the silence, a sudden chill down the spine, and always that faint rustling sound like clothing brushing against the floor. By day, Denton Hall is a relic of the city's past. But when night gathers its corridors, belong to Silky, the restless figure who lingers, still reminding all who enter that history is never truly gone. The Secret Tower. On Tower Street in Newcastle stands a curious remnant of the city's medieval defences. Known today as the Secret Tower, its thick stone walls once guarded the riverside approach. From the outside, it appears still and silent, a fragment of the city's long history. Yet those who linger by its windows have sometimes glimpsed something they cannot explain. For within the tower is said to move the figure of a cavalier, a soldier of the 17th century with flowing hair and a cloak about his shoulders. More than one passerby has sworn to see him through the glass, striding with purpose up a staircase that no longer exists. His boots strike soundlessly against vanished steps, his figure climbing higher until he vanishes into the darkness above. The apparition is unnerving, not only because it is so distinct, but because it repeats the same action. The soldier does not look outward, nor acknowledge those who see him. Instead, he seems locked within his own moment, condemned to retrace a journey again and again. Some say he was a royalist officer who died during the turbulent years of the Civil War. Others believe he was stationed here, a watchman never relieved of his duty. Though the cavalier has not been reported in recent years, The atmosphere of the tower remains unsettling. Visitors have described a sudden stillness, a drop in temperature, and the impression of eyes watching from the shadows. One man glancing up at the tower's windows felt sure he saw a movement behind the glass, though the rooms above were empty and unlit. The secret tower stands today as a reminder of Newcastle's fortified past. Yet it is more than stone and history. In its silent stairways, in its darkened chambers, something lingers, a soldier who perhaps never left his post. And as the night settles over the city, one cannot help but wonder whether he still climbs unseen, repeating his lonely ascent through the Tower of Shadows. The castles fall silent, the halls grow dark, yet whispers remain. Subscribe to Creepy Experience, share these tales, and be ready for the next shadow waiting in the dark.